right, Bruce back at you. Good early morning. Let's jump into YBIT. Okay, what did YBIT? Actually, it had a large number of shares. There's been a couple of times it's increased almost 200,000. So this was the record. It actually did 200,000. I think it had done 175. So let's look at the numbers first. Let's move it over. So what did BITO do, our underlying, right? So BITO went up to 1.12, right? From 2667 to 2697. So people, it looks like they sold it, but yet it went up by 200,000 shares in the fund, right? So it definitely had some buyers, but went down in price. I think people see value, even though, you know, we missed the number, I missed the number. It's still a hell of a distribution, probably as much as in the top 20% of distributions at $1.37. It's certainly, that'll be interesting. I'll go back and look at the list and see how it ranked in terms of how much, and then if you compare it to the stock price, it's very high for the stock price, hence the 81% yield, right? Probably in the top 6 distributions. That'll be interesting. I should look. Okay, so what did they do? Well, they had 3 trades, right? Because they had plenty of money to pay out. It's not like they had to save their treasury. So when people bought into the fund, they put a significant number of contracts on for their size, right? They don't get as much money. The IB is not quite as high, and their underlying is a cheap stock, right, relative to CONY and MSTY. So they put on 13, well, actually, let me show you. Okay, so buy call, sell short a put, and sell short a call, and they went out an additional week, right? So a week and 2 days, which is what we've been seeing for MSTY did it, and so did, I almost said BITO, but so did YBIT. And they got 43 cents. These are terrific, but I think this is what fooled the estimation. I think this is what panicked, and I'll explain the YIELDMAX management for paying out more money. They had a lot of money in the bank, but they had a big liability. And I think they couldn't roll their way out of that. If they rolled at all, they would have eaten all their products. They would have eaten all their profit. So in that sense, $1.37 was good. So if anybody has confusion, I'll go over that in a second. But we'll take that one away. So here's the sell call short, right? So color coded out to 614. We got 55,900. We sold at 43 cents, which is the upper range of when we sell. Okay. Now, we're not hurt too bad in the coming week. We've been winning the weeklies most of the time, but not always all of them. But we've been writing our synthetics for a lot of profit. So let's go out. All right, actually, I'm going to jump over to the synthetic. So since the beginning, they wrote a synthetic very far with a strike price at 36. Well, BITO takes a while typically to recover, because as I've said to you guys, BITO, and Jay admitted this, he said BITO had been paying 24, 30 cents, 33 cents. Anybody that knows it will go out and look on ProShares and look at BITO's distribution history. Well, I bought it in January. So all of a sudden, I was expecting 45 cents, but I bought it for its exposure to BTC directly, right? By doing CME futures. Well, I got a dividend of like $1.12, I think, the first time. Then in, I'm saying January, and I'm meaning, was it that long? No, it wasn't that long ago. Maybe, I'd have to look. I've probably gotten 4 or 5 distributions. I think 5 distributions, so it was January. So it went $1.12, you know, $1.20, $1.40. This time was $1.76, right? So BITO's just been paying, but there's some periods after its fiscal year, it hardly pays anything. So Jay said, hey, we're used to this fund not paying much when we saw the option activity. And then as soon as we opened YBIT, and this is the underlying entity, these distributions are big, similar to ours, and so it really drops the price. So when they chose 36s, you know, the good news is, just to explain this to you guys, so they buy a call, they're so far under at 26, 27, 28 because they're selling these large distributions, and for the most part, BTC for the last 60 days, you know, it's that 59, 60, 65, 63, 67, 65. We're finally in the upper quadrant of, you know, 68 to 72. And hopefully we break out. 74 is the all-time high, right? So, but BITO is well off for BTC being at 72 yesterday and closing at high 71s. BITO is only less than $27 because it's taken it quite a while. If you compare those, if you compare the BITO price, right? And this is our underlying, so it's super important. Anybody who gives me a comment says, why do you keep talking about BITO? Duh, why do we talk about coin for CONY, and why do we talk about MicroStrategy? So I'm gonna talk about BITO. So BITO as a tracking stock is lagging BTC. But if you look at them and you add all the distributions and BITO's share price, then it just about equates to BTC with a growth. Go back 6 months. They're both within 1% of being up. But you have to add all of BITO's distributions in there. So on one hand, without the distributions, the price isn't keeping up. So I think that philosophically is changing Jay and the fund managers on how they deal with that. So they've got 2 weeks left, and it'll be interesting if they roll, if they go to 29s or something, right? Because they are putting in a bunch of money in their pocket, right? This is 6 million, right? So the piggy bank is filling up. It always was filling up because they're buying a really cheap call because they're trading at these low numbers. Well, if you add back the last 3 distributions, they're up at 31, but still, they're writing a 36. So that hurt them. And when this happens to the other funds, they still pay them, okay? But they didn't in YBIT. So it's interesting. Now that I'm adjusting the dynamic, I think I'll be much more accurate in there for us, but I'm still really bullish on this. So let's jump over. Okay, so what they did was they took 1,300, they bought the calls for 8 cents, and they sold these for $8.83, right? So that put $1,137,000 in the piggy bank, right? But now they have a big liability, right, of 6,735 shares where they owe almost 6 million. So their net on those is about 159. Well, they had some other, they paid us $1.37. I'm going to go over to payments and then I'm going to jump back, right? So they paid us $1.37, but they had $7.64 that they could have paid us. But I was looking at that, again, it's a paper loss, saying, okay, well, they're not going to roll right now. They're going to pay us, you know, $2.50, $3. Well, no, because they know they got to roll in a couple weeks. And hopefully it's up there, right? So I'll say this, if Bitcoin runs and they get up to 33 or 34 and they only take a few million and their synthetic makes a bunch of money, in the meantime, right, from those prices, they're going to be looking really good for a payout next time. But we'll know better, right? I don't think this inequity that exists with them that's different than any other fund. There's no other fund that's based on a high payer, except sort of YMAX, right? But YMAX knows what all those funds are doing, right? And YMAX has its distribution. So it's a different animal. They're very familiar with all of those funds' payouts. They actually receive all of their payouts, okay? But in this case, they don't get BITOs, right? It's all synthetics. So that it's just really a different dynamic. I've harped on it, but then it was even more of this nuance when Jay admitted in an interview about 2 weeks ago, that they were expecting a very small, right? So they had to adjust when they sell their calls for this week because based on history, they knew it was going to be a big payout, and it was. Okay, so let's jump to, we covered the May. Okay, here's the share count, guys, right? From 750 to 950. Do you know what that represents? That represents almost 27% of fund growth, right? People looked at it, oh my God, it's a $20 stock and it's paying $1.37. There's not many other funds paying that, right? And especially with a small share count. So that's not why they only paid $137. I was explaining that to you in just that liability out there. But that is something that MSTY and a lot of these funds experience because they have a small base, right? You go out here, there were 250 for this month, there were 425 for this month, and already in June we've doubled, right? More than double. Double would be 850. We're 950, right? That didn't hold it back because I noticed once YIELDMAX commits, you're always going to get people on that Wednesday that fly in, and this is the most shares ever added, right, in a single day for them. It was 175, so this is 200. I mean, small potatoes. If you look at CONY, right, they're 26 million. MSTY is only 6 million. I went back and looked at MSTY, and they got up to like 1.1, and that's when they paid the $4 because they had 8 over here, but they had $1.99 here. So they withheld a bunch, but they didn't have such a big liability sort of sitting there as a paper loss. So that really came back to haunt these guys, right? Because these numbers were big, 764 and 22, and you could have easily paid 350, but they didn't want to stretch that. Okay, so in general, I like this. Let's see if Bitcoin can break out, even being hurt. So let's compare how much they're hurt and how much they stand to gain. Part of the problem, they don't stand to gain that much. They got to run a long ways to really gain, right? That part is ugly for these guys. So we're at 950, 18 million on net asset value. Now remember, the reason this is reflecting, so fair value, we're at 2072. We were down on the day while BITO was up, right? Go back to the May. I'll be in June starting on the next day of doing this, right? I already have June all set up. So here we are, as a reminder, they were up 1.2 and we were down 2.72, right? New fund, I set an expectation in some people's mind. I'm sure others maybe knew better. It's an interesting fund because there's a lot of competition for BTC. Roundhill has YBTC. ProShares has got like 8. They got 2 times, 1 time, bull, bear, 1 times, 2 times, right? The market right now, according to the SEC, they're not allowing triple leverage. Although I thought I saw something on MSTR where it was like a 5x bear on MSTR. I would have sworn, but I'm going to have to see if I can find it. I heard a fund manager for Granite say that 2 times is the SEC limit in the U.S. I remember in the gold stocks in the 2000s decade, I traded Nugget and Dust when they were 3x. You didn't want to stay very long on them. You wanted to go up or go down with them very quickly. But then the legislation changed, and I noticed when we had COVID that I jumped into Nugget after gold collapsed, and then it took off, and it was only 2x. But it was a nice little ride in 2020. Okay, So let's finish in holdings. So this is the 6 million, right? So this doesn't change very easily because it's at 36, right? They've got a bunch of money in there, so they really need to get out of this. Once these payments are done, right, they're going to need to roll. They got the cash. This payout is not that big a deal. It's less than 6 million, right? They're paying, well, if it was 1 million here, it's not, then that would be, oh no, that's only 1.4 million, right? $1.37 times a million shares, yeah. It's pretty dinky. But what it'll do is it'll wipe this out, right? If we have to spend the 6. But that's okay. You don't need much money in this fund to grow this. All we need, we can get a $2 payout with, 1.8 million in net income. So we've got 7.2. It's just we got that 6 million liability. We'd have to really run. We'd have to go up 3 or 4 points, and then we could really start knocking some of that down. Okay, so I wanted you to sort of understand that flow. Remember the 1,300 we sold? We're not doing too bad on these weeklies. I'll show you on the weekly, but this also captured it. So we sold everything for 229, including today we went out to 614, right? The problem is we're right at 26.97, right? So over the next 2 trading days, we've lost this 119. We'd have to pay 188. But compared to how much cash is out there at 7 million, even though we have a paper loss of 6, we got a lot of room to not worry. This looks pretty good. We're 40% in the money, right? Because 27.5. Remember, we're trading at 26.97. Okay, and the delta here, guys, this is that $1.37. So it says we're overpriced. This should be 20.48, right? And we're 20.72. So that's 24 cents, okay, above fair value, and doing the math here. Not a big deal, right? I was a buyer yesterday. I only added another 50 shares, but it was net added to the 750 I had. So I'm happy with this fund. I see it paying $1 and above as long as we stay in a Bitcoin bull market, and I see that into February next year. Doesn't mean it can't pull back at any point here, and we'll see if we break out or not soon. Okay, so on weeklies, this just displays it slightly different, right? We collected 229, we owe 220, right? And this guy's pretty safe. Look at, we got 48, I think, and look, we're 4.65% in the money on the same day we wrote it, because we got, maybe we only got, oh yeah, we got 43. There we go, right? See the bottom one? We got 43 and it's trading at 41. And that one has 7 days, right? Whoops. And this is, I didn't change, this is 28.5. So it's got $1.50 to go over its time. And it's a good amount, but it's not the big amount. This is the big amount, right? The 53.65, something like that. I can look over here. 67.35, but that includes the next week's as well. So anyway, looking down here, let's take a look at these. How's it progress? So we had a 4.6 loss, a 5.5 loss, took that back to 5 even, and now we're at 6. But, and we'll be lower when this gets reflected, right? When we open up down here. But I think we'll see good things. Let me try and check the pre-market for you guys. Oh, I don't have that up. I'll do it on the next video when I do GDXY. I don't have that open right now. Okay, guys, I think that's it. Let me make sure. Synthetic holdings weekly, I covered everything there. I covered in the payment. So we'll start anew over in June, and all I'll have is the June situation, right? And May will be over here and done. I was using both lines to project down here. All right, guys, not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Bruce signing out. Have a great day ahead. That's it for now. Bye.